Gottlieb the Duggar, Fox Sports Radio after our show, is joining us on a summer day. What is the date today, by the way? I'm going to do a breaking news.
July
15th. I have breaking news later in the show for a personal issue. Do you go get coffee?
I do.
All right.
I heard this thing, and I'm not
going to waste your segment on it.
No, you can waste my segment.
Not now. The second part of it.
Okay.
I'll break news.
So breaking news coming next segment.
Okay. I'm going to break the news. And I'm not a protester. I don't yell at help. I've been a busboy. I've seen those. But I made a conscious decision, and it's changed my life. Before we get to that.
That's a good tease. Good tease.
Okay. So I want to throw this theory at you, Doug. You like theories, too.
Yes. Hypotheses more than theories. Theories have to be proven, right?
That's right. Hypotheses. So Zion Williamson was out of shape and never should have played in the Summer League, Coach K. I don't know that to be true, but I've thought about something, and I've talked about this on the show before. We don't ask teenagers to walk into the NFL and star. We don't ask hockey players go to juniors and the minors. Even baseball players, good ones, generally, Bryce Harper an exception, go 4 years to the minors. Their bodies are bigger. They're emotionally ready to go. You have a young son. The gap, the difference in your son now and 2 years later as they grow is substantial. We ask teenagers to go from 36 college games to 82, play defense, by the way, carry the team. When Zion came into the league, I had an executive tell me, he goes, I'd play him 26 minutes a night, and I'd play him 64 games with that body. Let that body grow. We asked these kids, so a story came out this weekend where injuries among young NBA players are going through the roof more than any sport, up 125%. Is it crazy to think that we are simply, the upside of being 18 and rich in the NBA is it's a star-driven league? We are asking way too much of teenagers.
Yes. Yes, it's in addition to the part that wasn't discussed. Baxter Holmes, I believe, authored that article. It's an outstanding article.
Way to go, Baxter.
It's funny, Kobe Bryant kind of echoed that sentiment. On the other hand, I think his daughter's AAU team actually practices 5 days a week. And he's like, they're playing too much basketball, but his daughter's team, it's one of the best in the country, practices 5 days a week. But look, there's an emotional arrested development that I think guys are missing. I think there's in terms of their skill set, there's an arrested development where, look at Dwight Howard. He never truly dominated at the college. He never got to play in college, so he didn't dominate at that level in the low post. He never really had a low post game. Granted, we don't want low post skills now, but there were some finer things about his game. Even LeBron James, as magnificent as he's been, he doesn't know how to play without the basketball. Like this, the whole idea of him being a point guard, it's like, look, end of the day, he has the ball in his hands, right. And since he got into league, which is great, but you look at how the Warriors have been able to play with the fewest number of ball screens, the most ball movement. So I do think there's some other social skills that are developed. I think there's some basketball skills, but this is the part that everyone's missing. You're asking just too much. Right? You're asking too much. And is there the one body? LeBron James is the outlier. Yeah. His body has not broken down until last year.
Yeah.
But everybody else's has.
Yes.
Because in addition to the fact that you're playing against men, you're playing more games, you're having more travel, your body's still changing. Like, I don't know how you were at 19 years old.
Oh, my God.
I stayed back. I was held back in 8th grade for sports. I was tiny, and I grew like 9.5 inches in 1 year.
Right.
So I graduated high school at 155 or so. I get to Notre Dame at 160. I played my first game 3 months later, 177. So just the idea that your body's not
Joey,
used to...
this is how it works for guys.
Right,
I grew 7 inches my junior year of high school.
Right, and so you're going to ask guys who are still developing and evolving to play, and we're judging you based upon how you play immediately when you're 18, 19 years old. Absolutely. Look, college has a lot of values that so many people can't see because all they see is the dollar signs of the NBA. Right. And I would guess that there are plenty of players that if you went back and tracked the 2nd, 3rd, 4-year college player, they probably break down less than guys that come straight out of high school or the one-and-dones now.
Well, I heard this from somebody inside the Lakers. Josh Hart and Kyle Kuzma walked into the league, and they said not only were they physically, they've been in weight rooms, they were better leaders.
Yes.
Because they were men. They were 23. It's a big difference asking an 18-year-old to walk into an NBA locker room, go tell the veteran play. But when he's 22, you feel like, okay, I was a college captain for 3 years. It's different.
Here's something interesting. Obviously, we're all being critical at some level of Sam Presti and the fact that he's traded away or lost all of these stars.
Right.
What people so quickly forget is that when they traded James Harden, one, it was because James Harden kept going out to strip clubs during the NBA Finals. He performed terribly.
Yeah.
And they said, like, look, do that in the offseason. We got the NBA Finals, and he was awful.
I remember
and
that.
then Rob Pelinka was his agent. He was asking for a ton of money. And they had to choose between Serge Ibaka or James Harden if they didn't want to go over the tax.
Right.
And the reason they chose Serge Ibaka wasn't they thought Serge Ibaka was a better player, but back then, okay, you go back 7 years ago, and you had to have two big guys because the Lakers had Andrew Bynum, and because the Spurs were playing with two big guys back then as well. Right. Andrew Bynum's a perfect example. Socially, emotionally, was not ready for the NBA, and his body broke down consistently. And he's been out of the league for 5 years or so now. I mean, it does in fact happen. The thing with Zion that I was told by people at the Summer League, one, his body is going to either be the limiting factor or the reason that he succeeds, and then two, I think people have come around to, people are now looking at him and go like, man, he's a lot smaller than I thought. He's 6'5" and 3/4 in bare feet.
Yeah.
Okay. So remember, I think has a chance to be a tremendous small ball five.
Yeah.
But small ball fives, you're guarding Anthony Davis when they go small.
No.
There are some limitations to his size, and he better buy a body guy. He better buy a guy who $1 million a year, whatever it costs, follow him around, keep him in shape, have a chef, because he has to lose weight. Otherwise, he runs the risk of those premature injuries.
By the way, Andre Agassi, long story I don't want to bore you with. Andre Agassi was best friends with the person who owned the TV station I first worked at. So Andre Agassi used to come into my office. Hey, Dodgers win last night? Before the internet, right? It was on the AP wire. Andre Agassi was legendary, Taco Bell. And all of a sudden he hit like 29, and Andre's like, oh, I can't eat like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like young athletes burn through so many calories, they tend to be bad eaters because they can get away with it. Zion's one of those guys, has to come into this league and get that thing worked on fast. To your point, spend some money. Don't go anywhere. I may break news. We have more stuff to talk about. It's Doug Gottlieb. It's The Herd. Doug Gottlieb's here. Listen, the Westbrook thing, it's a basketball thing. Westbrook is not an off-ball shooter. Harden's unbelievable with the ball. I don't think he's going to relinquish it. If I was James Harden, I wouldn't relinquish it. There's a reason you and I both do solo shows, because we wouldn't relinquish the mic enough. That's why we do good solo shows. We probably wouldn't work great outside of segments. I don't think it's going to work. What do you make of Westbrook, the player, today?
Well, it's a very interesting point, because earlier in their career, it did work. Right? When they were together on the Thunder in the fourth quarter, as Charles Barkley said should happen, James Harden was the point guard and Russell Westbrook was the off guard. And Russell Westbrook's a very good cutter. He's obviously crazy athletic. Yeah. And he doesn't. It's weird. You look at assist totals and people are like, whoa, he's a great passer. Like, no, not really. He doesn't create shots for other people nearly as well as he could. He's not a bad passer, but you move him off the basketball and he has a chance to be fantastic. But that was how many years ago? How many MVP awards for both of them? And they've grown and evolved into different people. It would be like if we did a two-person show 7 or 8 years ago.
When we were both coming into our careers,
right,
we would have been much more willing to do it.
Yes.
But now we're really difficult.
Yes, correct. And now we go on rants about coffee,
right,
and how expensive coffee is.
Right.
So it's not going to work. Well, look, Russell Westbrook is. What's not discussed enough, it's not just that he's a high-volume shooter and high-volume misser. Like, you're talking below 30% from three. As much as you might not love the Lakers roster, they don't have a player on their roster that shot outside of JaVale didn't shoot threes below 30% from three.
Yeah.
Like, and you have a team that collectively takes a ton of threes. Right. Takes the most threes in the NBA.
Houston shoots threes or dunks.
So wait, you put a guy who's on a team that shoots a ton of threes and that's not a good shooter, and you're going to tell him to shoot less?
But you know what?
Then, by the way, he doesn't play defense anymore, and he's also not a good finisher at the rim. He's crazy athletic, but he's not a great finisher. If you look at the analytics, he doesn't finish well, and he's had 3 knee surgeries. And as much as you guys are right, the Chris Paul contract's bad, it's 1 year shorter than the Russell Westbrook contract. The last year that contract is $47 million. Okay? $47 million. He's 34 years old. He'd be making $47 million. Good luck. Good luck with this deal. I think it probably had to be done.
That's where I think, listen, not all deals are... There are people called owners in the NFL, and some owners. I've had coaches tell me stories about owners. You can't believe. I would tell you the story, and you're like, that didn't happen. Owners are crazy.
Owners own is the expression,
yeah,
right?
And
why does this make sense? Owners own.
And by the way, the Fertitta family, they're watching the West get improved, and all of a sudden they're like, we were the talk of the league. Merchandise sales. Don't kid yourself.
I don't know if this is Fertitta as much as Chris Paul and James Harden clearly needed to be broken up from each other. Right. I think they weren't getting along. They didn't see. But think about Russell Westbrook. You're going to a guy who's a high volume misser going on a team that shoots the highest volume of threes. And yeah, by the way, you got a lame duck head coach that doesn't coach defense and lost Jeff Bezdelik, his defensive coordinator, got fired this year. Right? Like, how do you think that's going to work? It's going to, I think they're in the short term better because he's more athletic.
Yeah.
And he's got a little bit more in the tank than Chris Paul. But long term, that's not an NBA championship team.
By the way,
anymore.
I'll just throw this out there so we can put it on tape. It's up to me, and I ran the team. I like Mike D'Antoni. I'd remove him, put in Ty Lue. Why? Ty is confrontational. Ty is a former player. Ty gets after guys. Ty Lue, to me, would be the coach I would hire. I think you have Mike D'Antoni's a wonderful guy, works with certain young players, not confrontational, acknowledges on tape. D'Antoni acknowledges, I'm not really confrontational. You're going to need a little confrontation about 45 games into this thing to sit down with the fellas and say, listen, this is the way it's got to work, so I don't think it'll work. I only got a minute left.
It is interesting, Houston, though, right? How many times have we tried to rework this thing?
I know.
Right? Like, I almost feel bad, and it doesn't matter ownership or whatever. Like, they had Yao Ming, then let's add Tracy McGrady, and then Yao kept getting hurt. And then, then they make this move, and they get James Harden, and they've tried Dwight Howard. That didn't work.
Right.
Jeremy Lin, once upon a time, was supposed to be his point guard. That didn't work. Then the Chris Paul trade, that didn't work.
Yeah.
And now it's not for lack of trying.
No.
They try really hard.
Yeah, and James Harden's a great player. So when you get one of these great players, you're like, okay, we get like 5 years left of great James Harden. 4, 3. Now we're probably in the 4 to 5. But I think there's a clock on James Harden, and they're saying, we've got the best analytic score in the history of the league. We got to figure this out here. He's got 4 prime years left.
But then you go anti-analytics with this.
Well, I know
move.
it doesn't. There's a reason
sense.
that most people, like the analytic people, are all over the internet going, I don't understand it. Again, I think like you say, Chris Paul.
It was a personality conflict that led to a divorce, but because of the length of the contract and Russell Westbrook's success with the averaging a triple-double and the ego of having the basketball, you married the rebound chick. That's what you end up doing, and you married her for 4 years.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.